Well, and of course, review is really important. Now, if you haven't been through the Shar of Kavanos, which on Tefillin, which I have, but that doesn't mean I remember what I saw. I have some grasp of what we're about to learn here, but this is deep Kabbalah, and we have to set our imaginations on high speed. So let's go over here and let's see, can I get a little bit more light for myself? Will that help me? We're about to begin Tefillin. I thought maybe we would go through the Kafos, maybe a big review, but actually he reviews constantly. We can see the same patterns, but they're in different dimensions, different places. Following the light, again, which is Maluvash, and Maluvash again. Maluvash 4 different times, it becomes a Kli. The whole idea of that according to the Kabbalists, is Hismatos Esaor. It's just an opposite concept. We think of light as terms of like, well, there's a bright light, there's a dim light like that. No, this is a light of the Ein Sof Baruch Hu. The Ein Sof Baruch Hu is not physical. So what is it? Well, we don't know. But on the other hand, we know that it exists, because without it, nothing exists. So here we go, the Hakdama Katsara B'inyan HaTefillah. So this is a little intro. So he says, Maluka Mishar HaKavanos, this is all gathered together. This is really sort of like a composite from the Shar HaKavanos. Now, I'm assuming, I don't know, well, actually, this is probably put together by the publisher, which is the Shmueli brothers, who came out with RECHOVOT and NAHAR. It's very popular amongst Kabbalists. So he says, Da, ki acharat tefillah, after you pray, after he means Shmona Esrei, chozrim ha-mochin lehistalik, the mochin which came in through the Amida, through the Shmona Esrei, they go back, v'yotzim meresha de zer anpin, and they leave the head of zer anpin, v'omnim al gav rosho besod or makif, and they're no longer inside of zer anpin, they shine on zer anpin from a distance. Then he says, v'hamakifim arishonim shalo, so he originally had makifim, right? They were makifim zah is a whole tzalim. So what we said about the tzalim is the 2 makifim, the lamed and the mem of the tzalim. The tzadi goes into zer anpin. Now he's saying that the tzadi of zer anpin is coming out. Well, what happened to the lamed, the mem? They were the makifim. That is, the tzadi is the pinimi, and which is a lesser light, and the lamed of the men are much greater lights, had to stay out. What happened to them? Alolamala Yosa, they moved up like on a tandem. I know, wrong word, but they moved up like a ladder, moving up. It just kept moving up. So he said, even though that they left, and now they're in the secret of Makifin, Nishar Chad Rishimo, the Lahon goes there anpin. There is a Rishimo, because we have a concept that there's nothing really ever lost in Ruchnius. Of course, this is maybe slightly different. Is that there's a deposit left behind. It's a stamp, an impression. He calls it a Chad Rishimo or Rishimo. Go inside a zer anpin. V'chein koya benukva, the same thing in nukva. That the female aspect of zer anpin also has a Rishimo left behind. V'ayidei osel Rishimo, and so this Rishimo, Nisha'arim kol hayom b'midas gadlusam, so there is some aspect inside of the person of the midah of godless. What's the midah of godless mean? The midah of godless means the Gimel Rishonos came into zer anpin and completed him. So, but they're gone except for Rishimo. Ve'ena misma'atim, and so therefore they don't ever get. They're not minimized. They stay there, and they shine into the person for that amount of time. I think it's my best explanation. So anyway, Amnam, Midachilas Alida, but now night falls. So let's see, now you're in the synagogue on for Marav, Aravit. As then, Afilu Osach Rishima Mistalk Mizun. So even then, at that point, Zocher Venok lose their Rishimos. What happens to them? Amnam Arishimo Shazer Ampin Yotze Balayla Venishach Besod or Makif al Rosho. So the translation is that we see that the Rishimo that was left inside of Zer Ampin At nighttime, it comes out of Zeranpin and remains on top of his head, as a or makif. It's shining on Zeranpin instead of from inside of Zeranpin where it was. Then the mochim ba'atzman, the mochim themselves, shehoya hayom or makif, that the whole day long they were shining as a makif on Zeranpin. Alo lamala yosa, they go up on the rungs of the ladder, higher to a higher place. He says, Rachel. Rachel is Malchus. He niknas toch gufa de Zeranpin. Instead of going up, and it's leaving, this Rishima is going to leave, instead of going up into, the next rung on the ladder. I mean, she's at the bottom, she would move everything up. No, it doesn't happen. Instead, she goes inside his Zeranpin. And she comes out from the place. Where does she go? She goes into the chest of Zeranpin. That's where she originally was developed. V'sham omed b'toch Zeranpin, and she stands there, or she continues there, inside of Zeranpin. And v'sham meir alecho b'sod or makif, and from that place, Masham Meir Alecho, that is the lights that came out of the Mochin of Zeranpin that are now on top of his head. Meir Alecho Besod or Makif, they shine on her. She's inside of Zeranpin now, in the secret of Or Makif. So this is the difference between day and nighttime. Now the Nook is inside of Zeranpin at nighttime, and during the daytime, she was a Rishima. There was still a Rishima there in the Nook. Now, going on, it's a whole story. So now we already know this. Especially if you're listening to any of the shiurim that have to do with nighttime, what do they call? I have a name for it. My memory is no good with names anymore. Halada Yeredis and Malchus Lamata Ba'olam Abriya. Malchus, then we know, goes down into Olam Abriya. That is, Rachel goes into Briya. V'hiba Bechinas Acharayim de Malchus. What part goes into Briya? The Acharayim of Malchus goes down. So, excuse me, says it like this. V'hiba Bechinas Acharayim de Malchus, the Keser, the Nook. That's what goes down. The Malchus, the lowest part of the Keser, the Nook, that goes down. Sham ad or haboker, and stays in Olam Abriya, which is also, you could say, well, it's Bia, goes down, it diffuses more. Amnam Atesha Spheres Acheres, but the other 9 spheres, Haboyim la Rachel, that came to Rachel, Besod Tosefes, that are added onto Rachel, that it makes her into 10 spheres. Hey, Miss Arvos, they are mixed. Mishavros, but parts of Flea, and from parts of Flea. Now that particular language, I need to read it again for myself. It's not the way that I understand it, but that I could pictured it. It's so he says there's an Amnam, the Tesha Spheres Acheres. So all we have here was the Malchus of Keser, and everything else has gone down. The Malchus of Keser has gone down. I'm the Matesha Spheres Acheres Aboyim, the Rochel that come to Rochel Besod Tosefes, they're added onto her. Hey, Miss Arbos, they are mixed, and Miss Chavros with parts of Leah with the parts of Leah. Why? He said, V'al Zera Negdelis Leah, and this is what happens, is that Leah starts to grow. Now, I'm still not sure of this. I'm still not sure. I have to read it one more time. He says the Tesha Spheres Acheros. What are the Tesha Spheres Acheros? We had the idea that Keser is all that remains of Okay, so I'm having trouble with this idea because it's Bachatzas Alayla Yaredes Malchus Matach Ba'olam Habriya. Behiba Bechinas Acharayim the Malchus the Keser the Nook. So what are we talking about? We're talking about the backside of the Malchus of the Kesser Danuk. Now, does he mean that that's all that's left behind? I think that might be it, but I'm not sure. Sham ad or Haboker, and she stays in this place that is this Acharayim, the Malchus, the Kesed of the Nook, stays there until morning. Amna Matesha Sephiros Acheros, what about the other 9 Sephiros? Now we're talking about the Malchus of the Kesed of the Nook. What about the others? Tesha Sephiros Acheros, Haboyim the Rachel Besod Tosefis, that come to Rachel because they're added on to Rachel so she can grow. Hey, Miss Arvos, Miss Chavros, B'partzuf Leah. They're all mixed in with the parts of Leah. Ba'yedeza Negdelis Leah, so this causes Leah to grow. Achar Chatzos Lila, but call Orech Zer Anpin, the whole length of Zer Anpin. So now Leah is on the backside of Zer Anpin. Her basic position is at the neck of the back of Zer Anpin. The back of the neck of Zer Anpin down to the chaz, and now she grows all the way down to the feet of Zer Anpin. Vayidei esek haTorah, then she'oskim Yisrael hakomim achratzos alayla, so Jews that get up after midnight, and learn Torah, heim mosifim koach gadol la'osach hanakuda, they add a tremendous amount of strength and power to that nakuda. Series this 10th Nakuda, Yarda B'chatzos, that went down at midnight. V'hi ola ma'at, she goes up little by little. Ad shenimsiki ba'or haboker, until we find like this, little by little. Bor haboker, gomra hi la'alos b'chatzilos, she is completely back up into Atzilus again. Now, I can see that where my confusion is on this one phrase. So he says, Amnam Atesha Sephiros Acheros. What are the other 9 Sephiros? So he says, and he said before that, he said, what fell is he Bechinas Acharayim, the Malchus, the Kesed, the Nook. Read it again from the beginning. Kavar Yudatiki Bechatzos Alada Yeredis HaMalchus, the Mata Ba'olam Abriya. Malchus goes down. What part of Malchus goes down? V'hiba b'chinas acharayim the malchus the kesed denuk. That's the part that goes down. Now that's one svira. It's very confusing to me. V'omelisham ad or haboker. Now hopefully when we see the Rashash, actually when we're making the brachos, and when we get into the concept of how the light flows through the tefillin, we'll understand that better. That's what I'm hoping. Amna Matesha Sephiros Acheres Aboyim the Rachel Besod Tosefis, so that which is added on to Rachel to bring her up, Hamisarvos and Mischavros B'parts of Leah. So all of these, the other 9 spheros are all mixed, he says, joined together with the parts of Leah. Because Leah, if Rachel is leaving, then Leah has to fill up the space. So Leah starts growing. So this is why we have a Tikkun Chatzos, which includes a Tikkun Leah, because Leah is after Chatzos. Lila, Bakal Orech Zer Anpin Kulo, over the whole length of Zer Anpin, the entire Zer Anpin. V'ayidei Esa Katorah. So let's say this is the Kabbalah. The Kabbalists want to get up after midnight, and if they're strong, they can stay up all night, and they can be around when the morning comes, when the real chesed comes in. Hey, mosifim koach gadol la'osach hanakuda ha'asiris sheyarda b'chatzos. Now, this has got me really confused about what it is, but I'll translate it and say maybe somebody could make a comment and straighten me out here. Hey, mosifim koach gadol la'osach hanakuda. What nakuda are we talking about? He says the only part that what came down to fill up that left, that's the way this what's confusing me, was the malchus of the keser of the nook. That's the part that went down into Bria. That's only one. So then there's still 9 parts, according to my thinking. There's still 9 parts of the Kesser of uh, of the Nook still in its Silus. So he says, so let's Haim Mosifim Koch Godel La'osa HaNikot. They bring a tremendous amount. That is what's mixed up with Leah. Ha'asiri Sheyarda B'Chatzos, that 10th part that went down at Chatzos. V'hi Ola Mat Mat, and then she starts coming up. Ad Shenimsacha Ki Ba'or Boker, until we find that in the morning light, Gamrahi La'alos B'Chatzilos, she completes her elevation into Atzilos. V'Leah Misma'etis, then as that is happening, Leah, she starts to withdraw and goes back to her place. Misma'etis v'Choseva the Shiura Harishon Belvad, which is from approximately the back of the neck to the Chaz of Zeranpin. V'Omedis Achrei Zeranpin, and she's standing now behind Zeranpin. V'az osa hatesha spheres. Now these 9 spheres shalokach min Rachel, that she took from Rachel. So he's saying like this. It seems to be that he says, so since he's saying that Leah takes the 9 spheros, the only part of this is a chiddush for me, so it's hard. So he said the only part of Rachel that actually goes down into Bria is the malchus of the Kesser. But what happens to the other parts, the parts of the Yesod and all the way up the line? What about the other 9 spheres? So they get mixed up, he says, with Leah. And Leah starts to dominate this situation and absorbs them, so to speak. That seems to be what he's saying. So now these 9 spheres that she took from Rachel, they go down also into Bia now. So originally they didn't go down to Bia, but now they do. So that dot of the castle, which is the malchus of the Kesser of Rachel, Yosef Shorish Rachel, the fact that this is really the basis of Rachel, because Rachel is the malchus, let's say, the ultimate malchus. Yosef Shorish Rachel, V'atzmusa, and it's actually her utter essence, Ba'alosa B'chatzilus, as she is going up back into Atzilus. Yosheves im Zer Anpen Panim Bepanim, and as she gets there, she's able to come back to Zer Anpen. This is the morning now, to be with him, Panim Bepanim. Prat, and specifically, Ki Ata Niknas Ba Osa Rishimo, now is coming into her again, that Rishimo, Shenistala B'mena B'layla, that left her at nighttime. It was moved to her arm. No, he's going to get into that. He says, so the Rishima left her at nighttime and went into Zeranpen, to his heart. The Indian is like this. Ki b'layla, at nighttime, he omeres lo, she says to him, Simeni kahosim alibacho. This is what happens. She goes to his heart. He says, place me or make me like a seal on your heart. That's how much she misses Zeranpin and how much she needs to be with him. V'hu inyan Rishimo shalamochem shalah. So this is the inyan of the Rishimo, that inyan of there's a deposit still inside of the heart of Zeranpin. Shal hamochim shalah, which was all that was left of the mochim that were inside of Rachel during the, we're really talking about the Shemona Esrei, or the time of real intimacy with Zeranpin. Uba or haboker, and when morning comes, he omeres kochosim al zarecho, she says this, now I will be a seal on your arm. And she moves from the position of the heart straight to the left, in people who get into this, but people who write with their right hands, right-handed people. He says she moves to the left arm of that person. He omeres kachosim al zarecho, she says, I will be a seal on your arm. Shehuba b'chilas hakesser sheba, which is, what is the seal? Which is the idea of the kesser sheba. Now, his thing like this: the arm, what he's talking about, is opposite the chest. And the chest, he says like this: Sha'ala ad mokem ad makom zeroa dezah. So she moves up to the place of the shoulder dezah, or the arm of zah, not the shoulder, the arm of zah. Now that's where we put the tefillin. So she moves from the heart of Zeranpin. This is your kavana here, and she moves to the arm of Zeranpin. Now I'm going to stop the shear here. That was a lot for me. I'm learning a little bit. I hope that anybody, some people do listen to these shiurim, even though that, if you don't have a background in the Ari, we really don't know what all he's talking about. So here we are, learning the Rashash and getting ready. Tomorrow, Mitzvah Hashem, we're going to talk. We're going to do this, which has a lot of the hieroglyphics, may I say, of the Rashash, and we're going to have to really set our minds to try to figure out where this chef is coming from, where the chef is going, and then we'll just turn this page a little bit. We'll start with a little prayer to start off with, which is over here, and that's for, I don't know if we're going to do that part today or period. And then we're going to go Yichud Tefillin, so now we're going to get into that, and there's going to be more Rashash. We're going to come back to our old friend, the Matbeah HaBracha. Now, it's interesting, and for my final word, the only people that would know, because, look, I'm an outsider, I'm coming in, I met these people through, actually, my chavrusa, and people taught us things. And the only people who know what the Matbeah HaBracha are Kabbalists. So we learned from them a little information, and now we're going to try to spread it out a little bit so other people can realize that there is a such concept as maximizing your brachos through the knowledge of the Matbeah Bracha. This is Baruch Fleischman. You've been listening to the Tikkun Elevator Kollel.